While we are watching and waiting for more details to emerge surrounding President Trump's accusations of wiretapping against the Obama administration, one D.C. insider says it definitely happened. Kathy Aru is that insider. She's a liberal journalist who served as a senior advisor in the Bush administration, and she joins me now. So, Kathy, what do you know?
All right. Well, my sources this morning, my source from the White House told me she thinks it's all true. She said there were concerns that Trump, and this is from the White House and the administration, so inside the White House, there were concerns that Trump and his surrogates may have been colluding with the Russians as a possible bargaining chip to influence the election. Therefore, the wiretap was conducted.
Okay, so the idea is, in fact, that they went ahead and believed that this information was correct, went to the FISA court, then, based on probable cause, put the evidence forward to say, we have this information and belief, and therefore we want this granted. It just seems highly suspicious, because that seems to be being used for improper means. In fact, to say, well, we want to spy on them to see what they're doing during this election process, where there's this tight race between, at the time, candidate Trump and Hillary Clinton.
Right, and my source believes it. After 7.5 years with the Obama administration, had heard that there were concerns, and she said that she is not sure who secured the warrant. That's her one question. Who secured the warrant? But the White House and the administration, they were concerned, and they did discuss the wiretapping.
Very interesting. We have Geraldo Rivera, who's still here with us on set. Based on what she's saying from those inside sources, does that change some of the opinion that you have on this?
It doesn't. Let me just say, for a probable cause in a FISA context is very, very difficult to attain. You really have to have the goods. In this context, in the context of a presidential election, a closely contested election, where these two camps were out to kill each other, imagine the level of probable cause you would need for a judge to issue a warrant. I just think that if this story is true, then there's something very explosive going on. That's why I want the President Trump, to tell us that he misspoke or put it in context. I mean, to talk about Nixon and Watergate and so forth, he really owes us a clarification.
My source, direct quote, said the intelligence community did its due diligence given the threat of the Russian influence. So it's merely due diligence by conducting the wiretapping. They had to do it. Something was heard. They did their due diligence. So she is confirming that the White House and the administration was aware of it.
Very interesting. So what's going to happen next, Geraldo, after this? We get this information. It sounds like, at least, perhaps we don't know, because this is just breaking news tonight and the story is developing, but it sounds like perhaps that this did occur, and then we just have to check into what was the reason behind it.
But if they did due diligence and came up with nothing, you know, due diligence doesn't mean they found something. Due diligence means it was incumbent on them to do the investigation. Could they have done the investigation and found zero? That's what the president said in one of these tweets, that they looked into us, they did these dirty tricks and found nothing. If that's the case, then that's what the president can tell us tomorrow. They did it, they came all over me, they were crawling all over me, they had all these people, and they found nothing. Let us know.
Well, right, because also then you think about the stories that have been developing and happening in the news, the allegations against General Mike Flynn, now the allegations against Jeff Sessions, all of these things, it seems, are following the same narrative of pushing the Russian story and trying to tie in President Trump and, at the time, his campaign and election with them. Because you even saw that in the WikiLeaks emails with Podesta. There was allegations and some of the statements about the Russians and tying the Russians in. So that's what I think is very interesting.
We don't know who secured the warrant. That's what's interesting. My source doesn't know. We don't know who secured the warrant.
You mean who, which person?
Yeah. Did the president know?
I can't imagine the president wouldn't know.
That's what my source believes.
I mean, the president couldn't or wouldn't order it, but he had to know.
Yeah, the president can't specifically order it himself. It would have to be intelligence agency or the FBI putting it forward. But what was the nexus of this? What, in fact, generated this request, this interest? What was it based on? There has to be a legal reason, and it can't be that one side was trying to weigh and tip the election based on their ideology or political orientation.
Just the only thing is that General Flynn and Jeff Sessions are not accused of espionage or anything like it. They're accused of not telling the truth under oath. That's way different than this national security that they knew or they were dealing with the Russians. We got to be clear about that.
Absolutely. All right, Kathy and Geraldo, thank you so much. And President Obama's supporters, they are defending him tonight, saying a president cannot order a wiretap. But rules didn't stop the Obama White House before. Remember when the IRS targeted conservatives? Well, Rick Grinnell has some perspective on that next. Stay with us.
Well, President Donald Trump claims his White House predecessor, Barack Obama, wiretapped his offices in New York prior to the election last November. Trump posted a series of tweets decrying the alleged surveillance as, quote, McCarthyism. He didn't, however, provide any evidence or say who informed him about the alleged wiretapping, though he did hint at possible legal action. Barack Obama's spokesman responded to Trump's accusations, saying, this is a direct quote, neither President Obama nor any White House official ever ordered surveillance on any U.S. citizen. Let's bring in former CIA analyst and State Department official Larry Johnson. Joins me live on the line. Very good afternoon to you, Larry. We've heard it said that these are really serious accusations by some guests we've had on so far. What's your assessment of what Donald Trump's had to say? How big a deal is this?
I think it's a huge deal. The problem is Trump probably shouldn't have done this via Twitter, because to call it that it was a wiretap is technically inaccurate. And the denials by the Obama people are like Bill Clinton asking what the meaning of is with respect to, was oral sex a sexual act? In this case, I understand from very good friends that what happened was both Jim Clapper, John Brennan at CIA were intimately involved in trying to derail the candidacy of Donald Trump. That there was some collusion overseas with Britain's own GHQC. That information that was gathered from GHQC was actually passed to John Brennan, and it was disseminated within the U.S. government. This dissemination was illegal. Donald Trump is, in essence, correct that the intelligence agencies and some in the law enforcement community on the side of the FBI were, in fact, illegally trying to access, monitor his communications with his aides and with other people. All of this with an end to trying to destroy and discredit his presidency. I don't think there will be any doubt of that. I think it's worth noting that the head of the National Security Agency, and Admiral Rogers, made a journey to Trump Tower shortly after Trump had won. And in the immediate aftermath of his visit, Jim Clapper and others in the intelligence community called for him to be fired. Now, why did Rogers go to Trump Tower? My understanding is, let's call it, it was to cover himself, because he was aware that the NSA the authorities had been misused and abused with respect to Donald Trump. So I think Trump's decision to go out this morning and tweet this was fully intended to send a notice and send word that I don't think he's doing this without evidence. He does have evidence. I think it was just inartfully expressed in the tweet.
You would think that if he's going to make such a serious accusation, do it so publicly, like you said, there would have to be evidence. Do you think we've not seen a lot of evidence in any of this whole Trump-Russia debacle. Do you think we will see any firm evidence in this case?
Well, there is no evidence on the side of Russia meddling in the U.S. election. I saw that you had Brent Badowski on earlier, and I simply wish that you folks would ask him a very basic question. Ask him, what specifically did Russia do that influenced the U.S. election? The answer is nothing. Russia did not set up front companies. Russia did not provide money to the Trump campaign so that they could buy advertising. Russia was not providing advisors, direct or indirect, as cutouts to advise Trump on how to defeat Hillary Clinton. So the classic things that we would see. Does Russia run intelligence operations against the United States? Yes. And does the United States do that against Russia? Yes. But this is an entirely, completely different matter. So I think what we're seeing here is, some think it's an exaggeration, but I do not. there is a genuine effort to try to take out and defeat Donald Trump, even in the aftermath of his election. And there are still senior people in jobs at the National Director of National Intelligence Office, the Office of the Central Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, that these are senior intelligence executives that ought to be fired. They ought to be marched right out the door.
But you talked about you believe that there's evidence there, and Donald Trump, let's be honest, he has been on the ropes a lot since he took office. He's been mostly a sort of a defensive stance he's taken. Will he be able to produce the evidence? And will he be able to actually sort of take the upper hand in this fight against not just the former establishment and the Democrats, but also of the media? He's fighting them all en masse, really.
Yeah, no, listen, this is a coordinated, organized effort. The Obama, let's call them the Obama remnants, were really shocked that Trump won. So they had no clue coming down the road that he was going to win. Once he won, they genuinely thought that they could do things and plant information in the press that would put so much pressure on him that he would not be able to take the oath of office. And those efforts backfired. That was one of the reasons the so-called dossier on Trump's alleged misbehaviors in Russia was leaked. All of this was part of a coordinated, planned campaign by people that are linked to Barack Obama. Now, did Barack Obama pick up the telephone and tell Jim Clapper or John Brennan to do X, Y, and Z? No, I don't think that's the case. My understanding, though, is Obama did give the green light when he was briefed on information that had come from British GHQC to U.S. intelligence officials, that he gave the green light to go ahead and try to start distributing and using that in an improper way. So this has to be, I think, done very methodically, because there are, I think, very well could be criminal charges brought against former members of the Obama administration for what they've done. What they're doing is, I think, would fall under the definition of sedition, which I realize sounds very alarmist. But the reality of what's going on is these are not isolated events generated by actions that have been taken by Donald Trump and his surrogates. These are actions that are being generated by opponents of Donald Trump trying to force actions out of the Trump team.
Larry, good to speak to you. Thanks for joining us again here on RT. Former CIA analyst and State Department official Larry Johnson giving us his views there.